In this video, we are going to build a powerful Google Maps scraper which can scrape business data from Google Maps using n8n and Apify, research about these businesses using multiple sources to gather more information about them, and then using that information, it will craft a highly personalized cold email opener that will instantly improve your reply rates. So we are tackling two problems in this workflow. The number one problem is generating enriched lead data, and number two is with cold email personalization. If your email is not about your customers and all about who you are and what you want to offer, no one is going to respond, right? So I'm going to walk you through the entire workflow and we'll be solving these issues one by one. All right, so let's start by demoing this workflow. We'll start by setting the Google Maps search query here. So right now I've set it up as a manual trigger, but you can maybe set it up to run on a schedule or use a form trigger or whatever you wish. So right now for demo purposes, I've set up a manual trigger here. And if I double click on that, we have the properties window opened. I'll click on the plus button here and you can see that currently I'm searching for restaurants in Amsterdam and I want a max results of 50, and these three parameters are required by the Apify web scraper, so that is why I am providing it right away. So after this demo, we'll go ahead and read the documentation regarding the input data for the Apify scraper, but for now let's save this real quick. I click on save. Let's return back to the canvas. Okay, now that we have set it up, let's go and execute this workflow. So I'm clicking on execute workflow. So you can see that the workflow is in action. There is this AI agent node that is currently running. It's researching the business details via Perplexity. So I have used Perplexity in this example to research the business data. Now you can see that it's generating the personalized cold email opener. So that's a Gemini node that I'm using for that purpose. Once the personalized cold email opener is ready, so we'll be appending the whole lead data into this lead data sheet. Currently I'm using Google Sheets to store the lead data. So let's go to Google Sheets and check this lead data out. So right now I'm logged into Google Sheets and this is the lead data sheet. So I've run this for a couple of businesses just for testing sake, and you can see that we have fetched the business name, the address, the primary category, the subcategories, the website for the business. We also have their phone number from their Google listings, and the best part about the Apify scraper is that it lets you scrape a level above. So what the scraper basically does is that it goes to the website of the restaurant mentioned here and it scrapes the contact information, the contact email from the website, and it provides you that as well. So that is one added advantage you get from Apify, which you can't get from the official Google Places API, because a Google listing will not show you the email for the business, right? So that is there. And next you have the rating, the number of ratings, and this is where things get interesting. As you can see here, these are all the research data that Perplexity has gathered. It has searched across like 8 to 10 different sources to gather all of these key information regarding the business, which would take a lot of time if you are doing this manually. So for each of these entries, Perplexity has generated a lot of context, and this context we are using further down the line to craft a personalized email icebreaker. So if you can see that this email icebreaker mentions about a south facing terrace for the restaurant and that it faces the IJ river. So where do we get this context from, right? So we got this little personal context from Perplexity's research data. You can see that somebody has mentioned in the review that it features a large south facing terrace with the views of the IJ river. So this little data was used to personalize this cold email opener, which makes a hell lot of difference, right? When you send like a generic email to like multiple businesses, this never works out. But if you include a small personal touch to it, like what we have done here using the email icebreaker, it looks way better and much more personalized. It looks like somebody has taken their time to do research about the business and added a personal touch as well. And this always stands out among a sea of templated generic emails. And we also have a couple of interesting fields here as well. The URL to the Google Map listing, you can just access it from here. You also have their social media handles like Instagram, Facebook. You also have their LinkedIn, the Twitter. So if they have any of their social media mentioned on their website, we'll also get those as well. And maybe we can take this one step further where we can add multiple scrapers down the line for Instagram, for LinkedIn data, data for Facebook, so we can gather much more context from there as well. So I think now you have a idea of how powerful this scraper is and how we can personalize your cold email icebreakers at scale. Now let's go through the entire workflow from start to finish and understand how each of these nodes work together to fetch all of these interesting contextual lead data. Alright, so the workflow starts with the manual trigger as we saw earlier, and then it moves on to the Apify actor. In order to add an Apify actor, what you gotta do is you gotta go to the plus button here, search for Apify, and you can see the Apify nodes are displayed here. Click on Apify and you can select run an actor from the list, and this gets added to the workflow. So once the Apify actor runs, you get a list of leads from which you fetch individual dataset items one by one, and these dataset items are then passed on to this filter where we filter out the businesses that are currently active or the ones that are closed temporarily or permanently. And once that is done, we move on to the next step, which is the loop over items node. So we loop over each of these items here, and we then move on to the research part. So in order to understand Apify clearly, we'll go to the Apify page and we'll understand the description for this particular Apify actor. So let's do that next. Alright, so now I'm in the Apify web page. So it is apify.com. If you are not familiar with Apify, it's just a marketplace for different types of scrapers. If you are developing, let's say, a scraper from scratch, it takes a lot of work, right? But in Apify, developers can create their own versions of different scrapers and they can upload it to Apify, and other developers, whenever they need a particular function, let's say we have to scrape TikTok, and we can see that there is a scraper for TikTok videos here. Say if you want to scrape Amazon listings, there is a Amazon scraper somebody developed. So you can see the developer name here. And for Google Maps especially, there are multiple scrapers available on Apify, but the most popular one is the Google Maps scraper from Compass. So you can see that there are around 160k people downloaded and using this, and it has an overall rating of 4.6. So select that. So once you select that, we are navigated to the details page for the scraper, and you can just read through all of this. It's an excellent resource. It tells you everything that you need to know about the scraper, what all data it can access. If you're wondering how much it costs to fetch, let's say, 1,000 lead data from Google Maps, it would cost around $4, which is way cheaper if you are to compare this to other paid scrapers. So this is very friendly on your pocket, and you can extract a lot of information here. And you can see that you can even go a level up. As I mentioned earlier, you can get their full name, work email address, phone number, job title, LinkedIn profile, etc. So that is one big advantage that you get from using the Apify scraper. And you can just scroll through and you can see different types of categories you can extract, and you can see examples of outputs, and you can see the JSON responses for them as well. There are a lot of different parameters that you can extract. So the total score here is the overall review for the business, and you can see if it's temporarily closed, and we can see the times at which it is open, and you can get a lot more information. All you have to do is play around with this and see what all is useful for your use case, and you can just go ahead and extract that. As I've said, the baseline fees for extracting 1,000 leads is $4. If you want to go a level up and fetch the email addresses, the social media links, and for all of that, you'll need to pay a little extra. So right now I'm fetching a lot of extra details as well. For example, the social media links, email addresses. So for me, the overall cost comes to around $7 to $8 per 1,000 results, which is way cheaper when compared to the alternatives. So earlier I was using the Google Places API for scraping the leads. You can see that video on my channel. I will link it in the description. That is one excellent solution as well, but that does cost a lot more when compared to Apify. And if you want to use Apify inside of n8n, you can check the input here. So what I would suggest is that you can just go to this JSON example, and you can copy this JSON body, and you can go to n8n, and what you have to do is to open the run an actor node, and you can paste that into this input JSON section. So whatever details you wanted to extract, you can just set it as true, and it will go ahead and extract that for you. And you can see that I've set the location query to the location, the maximum number of results, and also the search query I have inputted here, so that all of this is updated dynamically when I run the workflow. And you can see that I have added a couple of extras business here. I've asked it to scrape the contact details, so that would be the email, and I've also asked it to fetch the reviews for the restaurants because I needed to add further context for the personalized email. So that is basically how you set the Apify actor. It's very simple, and once you do that, you make sure that you create an API key inside of Apify and link it here, create a credential. It's very easy to do so. All you have to do is click on the edit button and you can paste your API key here and it should work fine. So once you have that node ready, the next node would be getting the dataset items. So these are the settings for that. You can set up the credential, you can select the resources dataset, you can give a dataset ID here, which you can get it from the input. You can just search for dataset and you can get the dataset ID here and just drag it to this input box. And that is all there is to it. And you can also set the limit here. So I have set the limit to 50. So once both of these nodes are done, the next node would be the filter. So the settings for the filter is very simple. All you have to do is to filter the permanently closed and the temporary closed ones. You can set both of them as false. So only the currently active businesses gets passed on to the loop node here. Then this loop loops over each of these items. So after the loop, we move on to the next section, which is where we conduct the research. So the research is conducted by an AI agent, which uses a Gemini chat model to formulate its responses. And we are using a Perplexity node here to do the research. So let's quickly check the settings for this AI agent. I'll double click to open this and you can see that I have set a user prompt here, and let's go through that. So this is my user prompt. I want you to research a business and give me a few quick points that I can mention in an email or a phone call. Use the Perplexity tool for research. So we are doing the tool calling here, and we are also passing the essential details such as the business name, the website, phone, and address. So I'm also doing some quick token saving here. So I'm asking it to save tokens, keep responses to short sentences, and I'm asking it to not repeat any business details unnecessarily. And I'm also giving it an example sentence so that it gets an idea of how to summarize all of the findings. So once that is done, let's also take a look at the settings for the Perplexity node. So I'll double click to open it. So in the Perplexity node, I've made a connection to my API key, my Perplexity Pro account, and I have set a description for the Perplexity node. I'm asking it to message a model in Perplexity and get information regarding the business and contact email of the business owner, and also relevant data as bullets for email personalization and owner emails if any. So why I'm asking it to fetch owner emails is because sometimes if there is no email address present on the business website, Apify might not be able to detect the email address because it's not there on the website. So in that case, Perplexity during its research, it might encounter the owner's email and it can get the email for us at that time. So that is my logic for this. And once that is done, Perplexity sends back the research data to the AI agent, and Gemini is used to quickly summarize the findings. So this is just a basic Gemini node. I'm using 2.5 Flash Lite here to save up on tokens because this is just basic summarizing and response generation, and much of the heavy lifting is done using Perplexity. So once all of that is done, we wait for a couple of seconds. This wait is crucial because we don't want to end up hitting the rate limits for the Google APIs. And next comes the important part, the cold email icebreaker generation. So based on all of these research data that Perplexity has gathered, this Gemini node here drafts a personalized email icebreaker. So in order to add this node, all you have to do is go to the plus button, click on that, and you have to search for Gemini, and you can see the Google Gemini node here. Click on that and you have to select message a model. So what we are doing essentially is just messaging a Gemini model. So once you click on that, this gets added to the canvas. So I'll show you the settings for the Gemini personalization node. I'll double click to open this. So these are pretty much the same. You have the Gemini API key connected here. We select the resource as text and the operation is set to message a model, and we are using 2.5 Pro here because this is the first line of the email and I don't want to mess it up. So I don't care how much our tokens it consumes. I want this to be perfect. And for this particular node, we are giving it a couple of prompts. When I say prompts, we are giving it 2 user prompts and a system prompt as well. So the first user prompt is supplying it basic data. So it is giving it the business name, address, the neighborhood, reviews count, highlights, what the restaurant is popular for, the payment types, the context that comes from Perplexity. So all of these data gets passed in. And for the second user prompt, gives it more information regarding the target audience, the guidelines, and all that stuff. And next we will move on to the most important part, the system prompt. So this is pretty much detailed. So I'm giving it much more detail here. I'm giving it the relevant context, and I'm also giving it a couple of style guides which comes up in the instructions. So you can pretty much tweak this however you want. This is just for my personal use case, but you can give it specific examples of how you would write an email or how you would want your brand to be represented. So whatever that style is, you can just give it here. I'm giving it a lot of different examples here of conversational and casual style sentences, which works way better in a cold email. And I am giving it certain critical instructions to ensure that it doesn't repeat the same thing again and again in each and every one of the emails. I'm telling it how to format the icebreaker. So we have the initial greeting, then you have 2 new lines, and you have the first sentence with the period, and again you have 2 new lines, then the second sentence, and then it follows with the soft prompt. So I'm also giving the relevant input data so it can have the necessary context for writing the icebreaker. And we also have the context from the Perplexity node mentioned here as well. And we also give it a couple of examples for the icebreaker, and we also have a standard operating procedure. So all these are basically our ways to tell it to not mess this up and to follow a particular style and to make it more human-like, right? You can be creative with this. You can test it out. Testing is very important here, because if you just copy this and pasted this for your business, you might not get the same results. You'll have to tweak these prompts and give it different style guides so that it matches your tone and personality. And I've also asked it to avoid generic compliments, buzzwords, or pushy sales language, which is an immediate turn off, right? So this is the system prompt, and it's very elaborate. You can just use ChatGPT or Gemini or n8n, or you can just feed it a couple of your own original writing and ask it to generate a style guide and eventually a system prompt. So that is all it takes. So once that is done, we move on to a merge node where we merge both the data from the loop and from the personalized email opener, and then we move on to a set node. So this is a final set node before we append this row to the Google Sheet. The use of the set node is to take care of all the final formatting so that everything is neat and tidy when it's fed into the Google Sheet. So the settings for this is very simple. So you can see that inside the set node we have set it to manual mapping, and we have mapped each of the fields from the input, and all of the columns inside the Google Sheet is mentioned here, and that is all there is to it. And finally we have the Google Sheets node. So if you don't know how to set up a Google Sheets node, it's very simple. I've explained this in my n8n basics video, which I'll be linking in the description. You can just check it out. So I'll just quickly show you the settings for this as well. So let's open the Google Sheets node. So I'll double click on this, and you can see that I've set the Google credentials, and I have selected the resource to sheet within document and the operation to append row, and I've selected my Google Sheet named lead gen, and the sheet name is sheet 1, and I'm mapping each of the columns manually. So all of the columns that the set node outputs, we are just dragging and dropping here. So all of these values gets populated into the correct row and column. So, and I have selected the cell formatting to let n8n format the data and not let Google Sheets format it, because since the phone number starts with a plus, Google Sheets might take it as a formula and it might mess up the formatting. So I've just set it here. So that is pretty much it. And this system can be considered as a foundational system, as I mentioned earlier. You can maybe add in a couple of scrapers for social media as well if you want to dig deeper and collect more context from different platforms. We can do that. And once this system is set and we have this final lead data sheet, using this sheet as a foundation, we can maybe feed this to a instantly or smart lead campaign where we can start cold emails using these personalized icebreakers. And we can maybe also build a reply management system which can listen to your inbox, and once a reply is received, received, we trigger a webhook, which then understands the context of that message and classify it as positive, neutral, or negative response and direct it through different workflows where we can add more context to these fields that we saw here. So if the user replies with a query, you can add that query as further context for the reply, and the system can refer this particular column and get the current status of the conversation, and it can reply even more intelligently. So all these are like further upgrades from this foundational system, and I hope this video has been useful for you and has given you ideas on how to proceed with building a cold email personalization system. And this is just the beginning, as I have pointed out, and I will be building on top of the system, and I'll be feeding this to an Instantly campaign soon. So if you want to know how that is done, how to set up the Instantly nodes within n8n, so stay tuned for that. Be subscribed, leave a like if this has helped you. I would encourage you to try this out on your own, and if you can improve upon this workflow, please let me know down in the comments so that I can also learn something from you. And on that note, I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.